Good morning, everyone. All right, today I'm here to actually share a little bit more about events space revenue management. All right, so this is actually a preview on what is actually coming out from HSMAI's micro-learning modules on event space revenue management. Okay, so as revenue managers, we always like to look at some statistics before we begin. Okay, so just like what we have actually saw this morning about restaurant, what I have here is something got to do with only the Singapore market for now. Okay, however, it will be still a good yardstick. So this F&B service data that I'm sharing is actually for all the F&B services in Singapore, excluding hotels. Later, I'll share on the hotel's perspective, what are we looking at. This is actually from, this data source is actually coming from Singapore Department of Statistics. So in terms of F&B service sales, it has been always very strong. And in fact, for the last 1 year, we can see that it's actually hovering between 800 to $1,000 million of sales in the whole of Singapore. And this includes restaurants as well as catering services in Singapore. All right? And in terms of the online contribution itself, is actually now stabilized between 20 to 30%, around the 25% mark for mainly restaurants who actually book through online sources. All right? And of course, we know during the COVID period, that is actually where online sales actually increased. But generally, for the past 1 year, we could see that even though now restaurants are all back, online is still a way of life for a lot of the people in Singapore. Next will be some interesting hotel statistics. Okay, this is actually a part of P&L of a consolidated of about 36 hotels in Singapore of various sizes as well as various category from upper mid-scale onwards. Okay, so as you can see from here, the data is actually all the way up to 2022 for now. And you can see that revenue per available room has almost doubled in 2022. Okay, and in terms of contribution, due to the good average rate that Singapore hotels are enjoying, you will see that the rooms contribution is actually going up a lot more, and it's almost, in fact, better than what we are seeing in 2019. Okay, F&B contribution, which includes restaurants, events, as well as bar in hotels, are contributing 30%. Okay, what's interesting to see is that in terms of departmental expenses, in fact, it actually has come down, okay, generally because of, if you can see from here, the rooms department expenses is actually down, okay. Now, you may think that it's kind of weird because we only know that cost is going up. How did this actually come down? Okay, if we were to actually look at the average rate growth is actually a lot more, so that actually helps to bring the overall percentage expenses down. Okay, however, today we will not be focusing on the rooms part, we will talk about the F&B part. Okay, but looking at F&B expenses is actually very concerning because even though the F&B revenue that we saw earlier has actually kind of stabilized, but expenses is still rather high. Okay, and if we were to look at labor costs, the cost percentage-wise compared to 2019 is not really a lot more. Okay, but in the F&B arena, what is actually concerning is food costs and other expenses is also increasing a lot more. So which is why in terms of the F&B profit, after you deduct the expenses, is actually kind of low as compared to rooms, which we know. But however, in terms of the expenses, why is still very concerning. Okay, so overall GOP for Singapore hotels, based on this sample data of 36 hotels, we are seeing it as 38.8%. slightly lower than 2019, but definitely in terms of value-wise, it's still on the low side, but it is actually improving a lot. Okay, so why are we looking at all these statistics? Basically, we need to know in F&B, of course, there's a mixture of different departments. What do you think, which department do you think will be actually most profitable in the hotel context? Okay, you can actually rank them. Let's have a look at the poll. Events, restaurant, and bar, which actually has got a higher profitability. Generally, bar at times actually has got a higher profitability as well. However, in most of the hotels, the bar revenue contribution could be actually a lot smaller in terms of proportion compared to restaurants as well as events. Okay, and the second highest is actually events. And again, it depends on your event space configuration. So sometimes events actually can contribute a lot more based on the different type of events that we're doing. So for today, what I'm going to focus on, all right, on 3 key points or topics in the event space revenue optimization. Okay, after talking about these 3 key points, then we'll look at some application. The first point is to understand the similarity. Okay, in this room, all of us, actually, most of us are revenue manager. So we are very familiar with hotels, hotel rooms revenue management. So first, we'll look at what is the similarity between rooms and event space. Next, I'll look at also what are the unique characteristics of event space that we need to take note of. Okay, and the third topic that I'll be focusing on will be what are the events revenue source, okay, as well as the flow through, because event itself is actually a very interesting, event space itself is actually a very interesting area, because it comes with not only the space that we are actually selling, it comes with a lot of other ancillary revenue that comes with it, okay. In fact, it is actually a combination of how we actually manage the space as well as how we manage the profit margin in order for us to get a very good profitable event. So these will be the 3 key topics that I will be focusing on today. Okay, so for hotel rooms, which all of us are very familiar, these are the 5 conditions that we know very well. Okay, we have got fixed capacity, as well as the perishable nature of it. In terms of time variable demand, definitely rooms, we get a lot of reservations, so it's kind of predictable. Okay, as well as in terms of cost, which we have seen earlier, the fixed cost is rather high. And segment-wise, in today's condition especially, segment has evolved a lot and is getting more complicated. So as we look at event space, it's also pretty similar. So in terms of function rooms or event spaces itself, there is some flexibility, because if you have divisible function space, you can actually exercise some flexibility in terms of how you sell it. Whether you sell the whole space, half the space, or whatever. But whatever we do it, there is still a limitation, because if the space you have is 100 square meter, you only have 100 square meter, even no matter how you divide it. So in this part, it is actually very similar to hotel rooms. Next, in terms of perishability, definitely is actually a lot more complicated, because in later I will actually go on to talk about this. In terms of time period, it's not about by day, by month. In fact, most of the function in the function space, we are actually selling the 24 hours that is available for hire. All right, so that is actually also very important. Next, on time variable demand, okay, there is season demand, okay, but what's even more important is that we know when it comes to event space, because it's actually a group component in our business, the booking lead time is a lot longer, all right? So therefore, it is actually very much predictable. We don't have walk-ins or we hardly have walk-in, although some hotels may have, but that is actually very minimal, right? And the fourth point, fixed costs, as we have seen earlier, F&B definitely, the cost is a lot more. Even though events may yield much better profit, but there is still certain fixed costs that we could not change. Okay, in terms of segment market, for event space, definitely we won't have as many segments as possible. However, things is also changing, and that is also another area that we can actually look at. But what we know is that there is customers who are willing to pay the same space at different price based on what is the purpose of using that space. Okay, like in Singapore especially, we know that weddings definitely yield us a lot more revenue or profit as compared to a seminar. Okay? All right, so next I would also like to hear from all of you, what do you think is the key difference between rooms and event spaces? So in terms of the key differences between event space and rooms is that for event space, as mentioned earlier, we are actually selling the space based on the 24 hours time, all right? And in most hotels, it's typically broken into 4 distinct meal periods, okay? So this is why is this important, because a lot of the events that we sell have a F&B component in there, all right? And because of that, generally, they will actually go into this area. But of course, apart from selling by meal period, we can still sell by blocks of 12 hours or 24 hours. All right? And the other thing is that in terms of pricing wise, because it's actually a group component and it has got a long lead time, it is not as dynamic as like how we actually price our transient pricing in the rooms part. Okay? So like what we saw in restaurant, we look at hot, cold, and universal kind of strategy. In events, we also do our pricing in such a way, the minimum that we should have is high, medium, low kind of pricing. So when we actually identify during high period, there should be a set of strategy, and for low period, a separate set, and during shoulder period, then we will actually have another set of strategy. Okay, so these are the 2 unique characteristics that we have to understand in the space that we are selling, so that we will be able to come up with a better strategy. Okay, next is talking about revenue source. As I've mentioned earlier, event space, selling an event is actually about making sure an event actually go on smoothly. And apart from the space itself, it's actually come with a lot other ancillary areas that we can actually work on. Okay? So many a time, we don't sell the space, just the space itself, like room rental, okay, although that is the fundamental of event space. But most of the time, we actually sell an event. So in terms of revenue source, the most important one would probably be food and beverage. Okay? And in terms of the flow-through, which is actually whatever revenue that we have got minus away the known cost, that is exactly how much you will actually bring to your bottom line in your P&L. So F&B generally have a 50% flow-through in terms of revenue to your overall bottom line. Okay? And again, F&B can come in many different ways that we can actually package it. Okay? Just like for weddings, by having a fanciful name, having a good presentation, you could actually charge a little bit more as compared to a basic menu. All right? And also, when it comes to other events, you can actually put in a beverage element in it, whether you're having an open bar or not having an open bar, that can also bring you additional source or revenue. All right? So F&B is actually a big part. Apart from F&B, you also have the rental fee. It depends on what type of event. If some event where they just need the basic setup, okay, in terms of rental fee, you approximately get a 90% flow through because you only need some of your events, your banquet staff to set up the room, okay, housekeeping to keep it clean, and generally whatever revenue that you get from there, it actually goes to your bottom line. Okay, the next revenue source is administrative fee. Although this is not common, but if we have things like secretariat service that you provide, it will actually go 100% to your bottom line. Okay, so again, it is not all events that you have got this element, but if we can be creative to think about what the clients need, and we can actually put in a fee, that would be actually something that we could actually take 100% to our profit. And last but not least, which most event would have, is your resources. Okay, your AV equipment is actually one common one. All right, but besides AV equipment, for some special event, the organizer may want to have a specialty chef having a live station. Okay. And if we were to be able to package that into the events, that could actually bring us good revenue as well. Okay? Because as we know, our chef salary is fixed. But if we can actually highlight the profile of the chef, and that is actually a live station with a renowned chef in the hotel, that could be actually good revenue as well. Okay? So besides AV equipments, additional resources in terms of human resource, you could actually put it in. All right, so these are the 4 main revenue sources that we should actually consider when we are building our packages in the event space. All right, next. Okay, application of revenue management. This is the famous definition that we saw earlier. Okay. So same thing with event space. What exactly is the product that we are selling? We have to come up with good price packages so that we could actually maximize. And also, the segmentation itself will be your right customer. And of course, I have actually added in the right place as well. Whether you actually get the lead from an event or from a road show, from maybe things like some event, it actually has got a cost involved, but you will also be able to actually get different type of events into the hotel. All right, and this is actually very important because when it comes to sales team, sometime or most of the time, they do, especially if your hotels has got big event space like this hotel, you have to participate in some key events in order for you to actually be able to actually lodge in some of these major events in the hotel. All right, so right place is also very important in this sense. Okay, so with that, revenue management is about managing demand and supply. Okay, and with that, we are talking about the time and capacity versus the variable pricing. And we all started with at least some data points. Okay, so in order for us to do that, we must be able to do our forecast. But for us to do a forecast, we need to have data point. So as some of you have rightfully mentioned earlier, that where do we get data for event spaces? Okay, so it could be all over the place. However, in fact, as compared to restaurant revenue management, events has got a lot more data point as compared to restaurant. Okay, and of course, once we have that, then we can actually start a baseline by having a forecast and look at what are the strategies involved, like what we have seen earlier, high, low, and medium, okay, and operationalize it. Once that is done, then we actually start collecting data, and from there, we continue with our revenue management process. All right, and of course, that will only be, we can only maximize if we can get all the 5 rights to be in sync. Okay, and that is always the challenge that we have. Okay, next, I will actually share with you some of the metrics that is commonly used when we talk about event space. Okay, so these are the few metrics that is actually being used. So for event space, we always look at pass, okay, because the whole space itself, okay, there is actually a cost involved in maintaining that space. So instead of going by average check and things like that, some space doesn't actually have F&B components. So the best KPI to actually measure event space will be RevPAS. Okay. The other thing that we need to also look at is actually function room occupancy. Okay. Especially we need to break it down by meal period, by day, by week. Okay. And the third metrics that we are looking at will be rooms to space ratio, because this is actually extremely important because you have in different hotels, you may have the rooms to support your space or the space to support a room. Okay, this is actually part of a group sales. So therefore, when this ratio become too low, okay, they may tell you that you have got too few rooms to support your space, okay? And you need to actually look at events that does not include rooms, right? And if this ratio become too high, okay, it will actually also warrant you to look at your space is not enough to support the rooms that you have, okay? So again, in order for us to maximize, it's actually a balancing act. How do we actually get the best optimal ratio for our hotel? So that requires us to actually do a little study more. Okay, next few slides, I will share with you some of the charts and tables that previously I have actually used for me to actually monitor the different hotels or different function space that I have in the hotel that I was managing. Okay, so this is actually a function room occupancy chart. All right. So what we have usually, we will actually have list down all the space area, okay, that is actually available, and we will actually look at the space itself. Okay, this table, it can be configured, okay, to see on a monthly basis or a yearly basis. So what I've actually shown here in an example is actually a chart that shows on a yearly basis over the last 3 years. Okay. And once you actually capture this, it's very easy for us to actually ask ourselves in terms of certain important questions. Like I say, revenue management is about balancing the inventory and pricing. So when we look at this chart over here, meeting room 10 seems to be very popular because it has got a very good occupancy rate, isn't it? But what we are seeing is that in terms of revenue per square meters, they are actually not at its highest. So that warrants us to actually think about or to find out more what happened to this room. Why is this room behaving this way? All right? And in the other room that we have, meeting room 19, even though it doesn't have a good occupancy, it actually yields us good revenue. All right? So how do we actually help? What can we do to actually improve the occupancy of this room? Okay, so that we can actually get more revenue.
Really actions. You can see it goes right? The number of pets that are occupying this use.
Generally, we don't, because event space itself depends on what type of event you're doing, right? So you don't put the number of packs.
Yeah, so let's say for example, it's in room like there's about I don't know what pets would be available for the team and room. So what should be like not expanding your room space or anything? Room space?
Okay, you mean guest room, is it?
As like minimum, like the network, we room can the capacity of 20 hex in. But because the nice setup makes you and the not right, so a lot of people always ask them, I think not we up to be medium about say 15 to 8 hex. Whereas the other one, like GS like you, maybe not trade can pick up with standard between by not so much, but people think that women set up cheaper.
Okay, so when it comes to function rooms occupancy, right, we don't look at the number of occupier because we look at how often this room is being utilized by meal period. Okay, and like I say, the key the KPI for us is actually revenue per available square feet. Okay, whether you have a 10 meter square or 100 meter square room, at the end of the day, each this is just similar to how developer actually measure their returns, right? So the best way to actually measure is for every square meter, how much revenue do you get? So regardless of whether you use that function room for events that involve people or it's just a pure room rental, at the end of the day, we also want to know what type of event actually goes into that function room. Okay, and we can see how we can actually manage that. Is there any event mix that you could actually have? If the two rooms is actually similar, is there any way that we can, is there any strategy that we can do to actually replicate that success story to actually for other rooms as well? So generally, we don't actually look at the number of packs. We only look at the space itself. All right? So with this at one glance, very interestingly, you probably will actually ask a lot of questions and you probably would need to actually dig out more information about what is going on in those rooms. All right? Okay, this is actually another things that I usually track. Okay, so apart from each function room, I even break down in terms of the meal period. Is there any particular meal period that is actually doing well? So always start with the overall and then you can drill down to particular month and even the individual space itself. Okay? And especially for rooms that is actually divisible, we also want to know how often do we actually sell part of the room or do we sell the whole room? Is there instances where we sell part of the room and the other room, because we have already sold the half, the other half cannot be sold? Okay, that is also very important. Okay, this will actually help us to actually again find out more so that we could actually come up with better strategy. Okay, next is about lead time. Okay, so for all of us, most of the hotel we actually use. I would say I don't think anyone use the big book anymore. Okay, so all of us are using sales and catering system. This information can actually draw from the sales and catering system. Okay, because we will definitely have the booking lead time which goes in. Okay, and if we were to educate our sales team to actually put in their leads in as soon as they get it. Okay, very interestingly, we will be able to know what is the response time, when is actually the exact booking lead time, and how long does it take for a client to actually make a reservation and confirm the reservation. Okay, from there, in fact, we could actually see how many of each type of event that we get, and at the same time, what is the overall lead time. Okay, and if we can capture where is the source of the sales lead, we can even know that which are the clients from which country or which area would actually be most valuable to you, and perhaps that will be something that you can actually work with the sales team to focus on. All right? Okay, so with that summary, yes. Yes, yeah, we also do track that. These are just some of the examples of some of the data point that you can actually do. But like I say, because every single booking is actually put into the sales and catering system, there is actually a lot of data point that we can actually work on. Okay, so this is just some of them. Definitely wash factor is actually important. And when the wash comes in, okay, and the other thing which I think I find very valuable, it will be actually the deny or the regret factor. Okay? And sometimes it could be just because our team is too busy to follow up and we lost that business, and we need to have honest reason being captured so that we know how to be better. Yeah, so that is also another very important data point that we need to capture. And all this is actually in our sales and catering system. It's just that how do we actually make sense of the data that is available, and how do we want to educate our sales team to make sure that they are being honest with all the data that they are keying in. That is actually the way to be more successful in our events space revenue optimization. All right. So this is just some, like I say, today I won't be able to cover everything. Okay. However, there is cost that is coming up that you can actually look into it. And then, of course, if you want to have a more discussion, we can actually separately discuss about it. All right. Okay. So with that, in terms of summary, event space itself is actually a holistic approach. Okay, it is not. We need to actually look at the various type of business opportunity. What do each type of business actually bring together? Okay, it is different from rooms or F&B where you only look at one thing, because it is a combination of many components when we talk about event space revenue management. And with the similar conditions that event space have with rooms as well as other hospitality products, it's only logical for us to actually apply revenue management that we know into these spaces. Okay, and unlike hotel rooms, events generally requires a very important part is the educated sales force. Okay, a lot of the salespeople that we know, they are very focused on their target. Okay, so they may not realize that whatever actions they have actually has got an impact onto the overall profitability to the overall space. Okay, so one of the things that as revenue manager, what we could do through our daily interaction with them is to actually share with them how whatever things that they are doing, whatever thing they are doing, how are they going to impact us, and hopefully with that we could actually be more successful. Okay, and of course, the another thing is to understand the different type of key metrics. Okay, how do we actually apply it? And that is actually another key. Okay, and of course, with all of us who is more analytical, we definitely can add value to the sales team by doing more analysis and share with them on these key statistics. Through my experience, a lot of the salespeople, they don't look at this, they are not aware. But when you show this, especially to the head of sales, they will be able to actually work with you to lead their team to achieve a better result. All right? And most important thing, since event sales can only come through, or events revenue can only come through the sales team, an effective communication strategy is most important when we talk about event space optimization. And of course, over here, these are actually the topics that this morning Jackie shared. So we have actually already complete the 3 modules on restaurant revenue optimization. And the next 3 topics on event space optimization is actually coming online probably in July, August. Okay, and do look out for the rest of the other topics as well. Okay, and I'll get a copy of these slides to you, so you can actually scan, and if you have interest in any of this topic, do share with us. Then we can actually look at how we can actually help you to actually get the information. Okay, and with Republic Poly, we also have got a lot of other short-term courses as well. Okay, so like for restaurant management, we also have got things on restaurant optimization, as well as helping F&B manager looking at expenses, okay? And also a lot other short courses involved. All right? So do get in touch with me, connect with me on LinkedIn, and if you need more questions or information, do feel free to reach out to me. All right? Thank you very much for your time.